Question number 11, Steffan Browning.
This question is to the Minister for the Environment. Will he set a pesticide use reduction policy for Aotearoa New Zealand, such as exists in many Scandinavian and EU countries?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
The government's policy is to focus on reducing the risk and harm from pesticide use rather than any arbitrary reduction. The New Zealand situation is quite different to Europe. Our greatest environmental challenge is the threat introduced pests pose to our unique biodiversity, and as the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment said, we should be increasing the use of pesticides like 1080 if we are serious about ensuring the survival of our special birds like kiwi, like kia and kolkako. There is actually far more harm caused by rats, stoats and possums than the pesticides to control them. Our major industries like kiwi fruit, apples, wine and other horticultural industries are making enormous progress in reducing the risk of pesticide use by using smart technology and more modern...
I apologise, I think. Is there a point of order?
There was a point of order. I did ask around the reduction
Order,
policy.
I know the question. What's the point of order?
Yeah, well, what was the dribble on that was unrelated to it?
Order. Order, I thought... Order, I accept it was a long answer. Order! I accept it was quite a long answer, but I thought the Minister was actually making a relatively genuine attempt to explain why we wouldn't be following a policy that's prevalent in Europe. Further supplementaries? Steffan Browning, supplementary question.
Given that the EU has recently recommended that the highly toxic POEA in weed killers such as Roundup be banned, will he instruct the Environmental Protection Authority to objectively reassess the full formulation of these products to protect New Zealanders' health? And if not, why not?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
This government makes its environmental decisions on the basis of good quality independent science. The Environmental Protection Authority has responsibility for the regulation of our chemicals. The advice that they have provided to me in respect of Roundup and the active ingredient glyphosate is that there is not sufficient evidence to warrant a reassessment.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Steffan Browning.
When will he give us the names of the 69 herbicide products on the market that include POEA? Or will he continue to stand by commercial confidentiality as a reason for not telling New Zealanders that they are exposed to a chemical that has been described as deadly to human embryonic, placental and umbilical cord cells?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
I simply do not accept the claim by the member which contradicts the technical advice that I have received from the Environmental Protection Authority, and if we are to make smart regulatory decisions about the effective management of chemicals, we should follow the evidence of scientists and not of politics.
Supplementary question, Scott Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I ask the Minister, what are the greatest risks posed by pesticides in New Zealand, and what steps is the government taking to address those risks?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
The greatest concern we have is older, less safe pesticides and also older chemicals that are stored in farm sheds and garden sheds in deteriorating bottles and drums. That is why the government initiated a major collection program in 2010, the Chemicals Ag Collection Program, that has collected and appropriately destroyed 54,000 tonnes of older chemicals like DDT, lindane and dieldrin. The second priority is phasing out chemicals like persistent organic pollutants as per the Stockholm Convention, and we are on target for phasing out those chemicals that are unsafe. I note that our agricultural industries have moved away from those what are referred to as hard pesticides to actually those that are far safer and pose very low harm and environmental risks.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Steffan Browning.
When the EPA reviewed the carcinogenicity of glyphosate, why did it not use the independent published research, but instead used a narrow selection of mostly Monsanto-funded unpublished research that did not reflect the full herbicide formulations as actually used in our streets and parks?
Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, I just simply have far more confidence in the independence and the scientific integrity of the work of the EPA than I do in the Green Party.
Question